Hello everyone, welcome back. Hope you all are doing great. Many of my subscribers were requesting me to make some videos on networking projects. So finally, here it is. Today, I am going to configure enterprise branch network topology, or you can say a small enterprise LAN-WAN integration topology. And this is our first networking project. This is simple but very powerful real world network topology that you can use as your college project or as a hands-on project if you are a beginner, if you are just starting your career in networking industry. As many of you know, it's difficult to find job in networking industry as a fresher. Everyone is looking for experienced engineers, so these kinds of projects can help you to get job in networking industry as a fresher. You can use these kinds of projects as a hands-on experience. This is perfect topology to represents how organization connects multiple LAN users and provide internet access with distribution layer switch. But before configuration, let's understand few important things about this topology. First of all, this is three-tier enterprise network model, which includes access layer, either you can say access layer or user layer, where all the users, right, and devices, it can be PC, it can be server, it can be printer, it can be IoT devices, any end devices, right, connected to these switches are working at access layer, right, or user layer. This layer is responsible for connecting multiple LAN users together and provide connectivity to them, like PC1 and PC2. Maybe these two PC can directly communicate through this switch 1, or maybe these two PC will communicate through distribution layer switch, right? So you will control the connectivity, the communication between multiple LAN users from here, from this distribution layer, right? First we have access layer, or you can say user layer. This layer connects end user to the network. Second, we have distribution layer here, right? And this is most common topology, guys, most common scenario, guys, right? And in the documentation you need to mention these all things in detail, like this is three-tier enterprise network model, right? Name of your project is going to be enterprise branch network or a small enterprise LAN-WAN integration topology, where you have three layers: access layers or user layers. This layer connects all end users together and provide access to the network. Then you have distribution layer. At distribution layer you are using one switch. At access layer you are using two switches, correct? Distribution layer is the brain of your LAN, right? This distribution layer is going to control the routing between a multiple LAN segment, right? Like there is a feature called VLAN which can be used for LAN segmentation, right? Because in the LAN side, just imagine, in any company there are some employees, 200 employees, right? This topology is perfect for 50 to 200 users. 50 to 200 users, this is perfect topology. So let's suppose 200 users are there in an company, XYZ company, right? So how you will connect these 200 devices? Can you connect it directly to a switch? Yes, you can connect. Will I have 200 ports on single switch? Maybe you will have 200 ports on single switch, or you can have multiple switches. Even you can combine all multiple switches into single logical switch with the help of technology like stacking, right, to increase the number of port you can connect. But out of these 200 users you have some departments, right? You have different types of traffic, right? And different types of traffic has different nature, right? That is nature of traffic, types of traffic. Similarly, we have type of customers. So many things are there which you need to understand when you guys are requesting for networking projects, like create Praphul, create some videos on networking project. It's easy for me. I can create one video on one project every day. I have lots of scenarios. But this is not all about engineers does in the production. This is not only the thing engineers configure or perform in the production. Here lots of things are there. You have to do documentation properly, which devices you are using here, right? How you will segment. I can show you the configuration, but I can't discuss complete enterprise network in one shot, in one video. So this series or my networking projects will be easy to understand for all those who are already done with CCNA and CCNP. CCNA and CCNP. If you already have knowledge of CCNA and CCNP, you can understand all videos in this series, right? CCNA and CCNP, the foundation, guys. If you are lacking in CCNA and CCNP, doesn't matter you are fresher or working professional, doesn't matter. Even if you have 10 years of experience, 10 years or 20 years of experience, and still lacking in CCNA and CCNP, not feeling confident, then revise it, relearn it, right? Relearn it. It's very important. This is foundation. So I am assuming you guys already have knowledge of CCNA and CCNP. So I have 200 users in the LAN. I will segment these users into department, into the different segments with the help of feature called VLAN, right? So where you will configure VLAN on the access layer switches and distribution layer switch, right? But who will control the communication between VLAN? That is inter VLAN routing, your distribution layer switch, right? So okay, definitely these two switches are playing very big role, because these switches are connecting multiple LAN devices together and providing access to the network. But your distribution layer is the brain of LAN, brain of LAN, or in other word you can say control layer as well. Like here what I told you, either you can say access layer or you can say user layer, user layer. Similarly here you can say brain, distribution layer, brain layer, or control layer, where you will configure all the policies, inter VLAN routing. From here you will manage communication between LAN devices, right? So distribution layer is control layer. It connects both access switches and perform or manage routing between VLANs, inter VLAN routing. Here only you will configure the policies. Maybe let's suppose PC1 and PC3, these three. And guys, whatever I am speaking here, explaining, you need to write down these all thing in the document. This is the part of documentation, right? Project doesn't mean you only need to configure, right? You should have topology, you should have configuration and proper documentation. What IP addresses you are using, right? What devices you are using. So let's suppose PC1 and PC3 belongs to NOC, network operation center, right? My NOC engineers are working here, and I have assigned one VLAN here, VLAN 100 or VLAN 10. And this PC and this PC, these devices are my hosting my application, company application, business application, are placed in VLAN 20. So I need two different subnet here. You can use, see here I am using two different subnet, 192.168.10.0, 192.168.20.0. Maybe I will assign 10.0 to NOC subnet, NOC VLAN, and 20.0 to servers, right, for all the applications. This time from where you will control all LAN users, from the distribution layer switch. Now let's suppose in the NOC team, in the NOC team, where my subnet or VLAN is VLAN 10 and my subnet is 192.168.10.0/24. Let's suppose here is one user, right? Here is one user who is using IP 192.168.10.1, let's suppose, right? Any user. Similarly, I have one application in the server department, VLAN 20, subnet is 192.168.20.0/24. Here I have one user or any one application using IP 192.168.20.1. I don't want this user in NOC team should have access to this application, because this is, let's suppose, HR application, right? So why NOC team will access HR application? I want to stop the communication, or I want to limit any communication. You will configure enforce all the policies on this distribution layer switch, right? So distribution layer is playing a very big role in this topology. And finally, we have third layer, third components, which is core layer, right? You can say WAN layer, WAN layer, right? Or you can say network edge, network edge. Router 1 is edge router, right? Edge router, which is connecting LAN and WAN, which is connecting LAN and WAN. Core layer. Done. So this is my simple topology, but it is very powerful. Router R1, the core device, connects enterprise network to the internet, and external connectivity for email, for cloud, for application, etc., right? So core layer means R1 is playing two big role. One, it is connecting LAN and WAN, means it is acting as an edge device. Second, it is providing external connectivity to all my LAN users for email, for cloud, right? Let's suppose some applications are hosted on cloud. Cloud is reachable from internet, you know this, right? So how my users, NOC team users or any user from any department, will access this cloud application through this core layer, and here we will configure routing for that, right? So all the devices are playing big role, right? Important role. Access layer switches are connecting all multiple LAN users together and providing access to network. Distribution layer is acting as a brain between for all LAN users, right? Performing inter-VLAN routing, all the policies, and core layer is acting as a edge, network edge, which is connecting my enterprise network to external network to the WAN. Done. If I will talk about the configuration now here, so guys, in the configuration part, see, first of all, which kind of company is going to use Praphul this type of design? If someone will ask me, or let's suppose this is my first project in the college, if instructor will ask me to explain when to use or where to use these kinds of topology, so this is perfect topology for a small to medium size enterprises when you have 50 to 200 users. Perfect, right? For educational institution, educational institutes, right? Educational institutes often use these kind of setup, these kinds of scenario. Third, banking, banks always use these kinds of scenarios. IT firm, IT firm, then businesses, a small business, medium sized business, even this is most common scenario. So you can say, like, even in a small sport company, right? In a small store room, even you will have similar kind of scenario. Even if I will talk about your home network, so you will not have this distribution layer switch. Home network is also going to be same, right? Your router is connected with switch, and then we have multiple LAN devices. This is setup of my home. So this is very common, very common. Why? Because this setup is designed for highly performance and security. Here you can implement the security as well. Got it? For the applications, you can have like CRM application for in the NOC team. You can have email, Excel, reports, internet, file sharing. These are traffic, right? Which kind of traffic will be there? CRM traffic, customer relationship management applications traffic, email traffic, Excel traffic, reports, internet traffic, file sharing traffic, any kind of traffic. nature of traffic. Some traffic will, like some LAN user will communicate with each other, right? Some LAN user from switch 1 will communicate to LAN user which is connected on switch number 2. Some traffic from LAN to WAN, some traffic from LAN to WAN to LAN. So these are the nature of traffic. Later you can configure here QS as well to prioritize some traffic, but I am going to make it simple today, right? Let's understand the simple configuration. Let's start from the beginning, from the lower layer, from the access layer. In the LAN side, you can see I have two subnet, 192.168.10.0/24 and 20.0/24. I am going to configure PC1 and PC3 in one dedicated VLAN, in VLAN 10, right? And I will assign IP from this first LAN subnet, and these two PC in different VLAN, let's say VLAN 20, and I will assign IP from this subnet. So on access layer switch 1 and access layer switch 2, I need to create VLANs. First of all, we'll configure VLAN, then we'll assign port, correct port in correct VLAN. We'll configure STP protocol to avoid loop. We can configure port security for security. Will definitely implement the port security as well. Then link between switch 1 and distribution layer, access layer switch and distribution layer switch should be the trunk link. So we'll configure this link as trunk. We'll configure encapsulation protocol .1q. .1q will allow VLAN 10 and 20 on the trunk link, right? Anything else? Later we'll see if we are missing anything, that then I will show you that configuration as well here, right? So these are the mandatory configuration on access layer switches. Similarly on distribution layer, definitely you will create VLAN, definitely you will configure trunk link, right? And for the trunking also I'm going to use protocol like DTP, or you can configure manually. For VLAN propagation also I can use protocol like VTP. Apart from the VLAN and trunk, here you have to create SVI, right? For routing, LAN routing. So there will be two SVI, one SVI for VLAN 10, one SVI for VLAN 20. After that, we'll verify the connectivity within the LAN, right? Means all the LAN users should be able to talk with each other, but no one be able to access internet. So what we'll do now? Now I will configure this link between router and this switch, right? For the external reachability. After that, we can configure a routing protocol to advertise LAN prefixes to the R1, and then we'll configure router R1. Let's suppose my routing protocol is going to be OSPF here, and you can see the subnet 10.1.1.0/24. Then on the router, you need to configure one default route towards internet to forward external traffic. Then here we have to perform again routing. OSPF should be enabled on router and distribution layer switch. You have to configure PAT, so we will configure PAT, port address translation, for internet access. Okay, this is going to be my configuration, and I am going to perform configuration from the scratch so that you can understand and you can configure your lab as well, right? These devices are dummy, not configured. Let me access all devices one by one. Switch 1, got the access. Switch 2, distribution switch, and router 1, and internet. So now here you can see I got the access of all the devices here, right? Let's start our configuration from access layer switch 1, from this switch, right? Access layer switch 1. What I told you, okay, for the VTP, for the VLAN, I can use VTP protocol. Will propagate the VLAN through VTP. For the trunking, I can use DTP protocol. Let me configure first this link as a trunk link. Before that, by default, if you will check ports, if I will talk about the production configuration, right? So if I am configuring this network in the real time in the production, then first I will configure all the access port as a these ports which are connected with LAN user as a access port. By default configuration is what? So run interface G0/1. You can see there is no any configuration, and so interface G0/1 switch port. So interface G0/1 switch port command is not available here. It should be available. Okay, G0/1 and switch port. Yes. So you will, if you will see the configuration mode, configured mode here, administrative mode is what administrative mode is configured? Dynamic auto, means DTP is enabled, right? So first of all, I am going to say here access. These ports should be access port, interface range G0/1 to 2, and say switch port mode access. And later I will assign the port into the VLAN. Similarly on switch number 2 also, enable config T, enable config T, interface range G0/1 to switch port access, or switch port mode access, switch port mode access. Now if you will check the configure mode, administrative mode on this switch, so interface G0/1 switch port, then you can see now configure mode is static access. Very good, means we have disabled the DTP. Here I can change the host name as well. Host name, I am saying switch 1. On switch number 2, let's say host name switch 2. Great. Let me write the configuration on switch 2 as well as on switch 1. And see, for the VLAN configuration, what I can do, I can take you to the distribution layer switch, host name D switch, right? And you know, by default configured mode on G0/0 is what? Dynamic auto. Here we have configured static access, but this port mode is dynamic auto, not desirable, sorry, auto, dynamic auto. This side also dynamic auto. That's why we don't have trunk link. If I will change the mode from dynamic auto to dynamic desirable, automatically this link will become trunk link. And this, if here also if I will change the mode from dynamic auto to dynamic desirable, then this link will become trunk link. So let me do that, right? I am going to configure dynamic trunking. So D switch 1 and interface range G0/1 to 2 and switch port mode. First of all, switch port trunk encapsulation .1q. I have changed the protocol .1q. Then switch port mode dynamic desirable, right? Now I am assuming trunk link here. So interface trunk, you can see G0/01 and G0/2. These two links are configured as trunk link, right? And all the VLANs are allowed over here. On switch number 1 also, now you can verify the trunk link. So interface trunk, here you can see G0/0 interface is configured as trunk, and encapsulation protocol is .1q. With the help of negotiation, and status is trunking. Native VLAN is VLAN 1. I want VLAN 100 to be my native VLAN, so we will change that. All the VLANs are allowed. This is not good for security, so we will allow only VLAN 10 and 20, because right now we are using only VLAN 10 and 20, and only one VLAN is there in management VLAN, right? If you will check the VLAN database, so VLAN brief, so you have only one VLAN in the VLAN database. Done. Now on distribution switch 1, I am going to allow only VLAN 10 and 20. But before that, let me set up VTP domain name. I am saying Cisco, right? So let me check on switch number 1, VTP domain name is changed or not. So VTP status, and here you can see the domain name. What is the domain name? Domain name is changed. Here also domain name is now Cisco. That means my both the switches, distribution switch and both access layer switches, are in VTP domain. are in VTP domain on switch number 2 also. So VTP status, you can see domain name is Cisco, right? It is in VTP domain. CR number and those all things we are not going to discuss. VTP protocol, just I am showing you the configuration. If you want to learn these protocols in detail, guys, you can learn CCNA and CCNP. That is the best way to master the foundation. Even if you want to learn from me, I am starting a new batch of CCNA plus CCNP or mentorship. In mentorship program also you will get CCNA and CCNP first, then we'll teach you SD-WAN and firewall. Anyone next generation firewall, you can choose any one firewall, either Palo Alto, FortiGate or Checkpoint, right? But here understand the configuration. I am assuming you are already done with CCNA and CCNP. You already know these all things. Done. So now all my switches are in VTP domain. If I will create VLAN here, VLAN 10 and VLAN 20, then automatically it will reflect to access layer switches as well. Now on access layer switch 1, if I am going to check VTP status, you can see CR number is now 1, and so VLAN brief. Now in the VLAN database you can see VLAN 10 and 20 both are created. Let me change the name as well. VLAN 10 and name I can say NOC team exit, and VLAN 20 I can say name applications apps, right? Exit. Now let me take you to switch 1, access layer switch 1 again, and show you the output. Now you can see VLAN 10 name is NOC, VLAN 20 name is apps. Great. On switch number 2 also you can check this. So VLAN brief, done. Great. Now we have VLAN 10 and 20 on all the switches. Now let me allow only these two VLAN on the trunk link. Interface range G0/1 to 2, and here if you will check the trunk link, so interface trunk, then you can see all the VLANs are allowed. Only these three VLANs are in active management. That is fine, but all the VLANs are allowed. So let me allow only these two VLAN. Command is going to be what? Switch port trunk allowed VLAN and 10 and 20 and 100 as well, because 100 is my management VLAN, or I can say native VLAN. Either I can use that. Management VLAN can be VLAN 192 and VLAN 100 is native VLAN. So I have only allowed these three VLANs on the trunk link. Do so interface trunk. Now you can see allowed VLAN list. Allowed VLAN list, VLAN 10, 20 and 100 is only allowed. I can create VLAN 100 as well, VLAN 100, and let me name it. Let's suppose this is management VLAN MGMT, right? And now go to access layer switch 1, so VLAN brief. Now you can see VLAN 100 is also there, and this is management VLAN, and so interface trunk. On the trunk link now you can see allowed VLAN is all the VLANs are allowed on access layer switch 1. So here also you have to change the configuration on G0/0 switch port trunk allowed VLAN 10, 20 and 100, right? On switch number 2 also, so interface trunk, all the VLANs are allowed. Let me remove all the VLANs. Interface G0/0 switch port trunk allowed VLAN 10, 20 and 100. I also want to change the native VLAN here on distribution layer switch. Again I am going to use range command. Interface range G0/1 to 2, and switch port trunk native VLAN is going to be my VLAN 192. VLAN 192 is the native VLAN. I can create VLAN 192 as well, name native. Great. Now so VLAN brief, you can see you have 4 VLAN. We have created 4 VLAN, and these all VLANs are reflected to both access layer switches as well. Done. Now about the native VLAN, let me show you the trunk link. So interface trunk, here you can see native VLAN is 1, right? Native VLAN is 1, and on distribution switch, so interface trunk native VLAN is 192. That's why we are getting this error message here. You can see one error message was there somewhere. I had seen that. Here you can see through CDP protocol we are getting one error message, that is native VLAN mismatch discover on G0/0, right? So let me change the native VLAN here as well. Interface G0/0 switch port trunk native VLAN 192, and on switch number 2 also, or I can just copy and paste the command do so history. Let me copy this command and let me paste it on access layer switch 2 as well. Here also we are getting native VLAN mismatch error. Now I will not get native VLAN mismatch error. Let me write the configuration of all the switches and distribution switch as well, right? Very good. Now I am going to assign correct user in correct VLAN. What I told you, PC1 and PC3 will be in VLAN 10 and PC2 and 4 will be in VLAN 20. So interface G0/1 switch port access VLAN 10, exit interface G0/2 switch port access VLAN 20, exit, right? And do so history. I can copy the command and I will paste same command on switch number 2 as well, access layer switch 2, because here also we have same configuration. Great. Now I can access my PCs, PC1, PC2, PC3 and PC4. Let me assign the IP addresses on these all PCs quickly. IP 192.168.10.1/24. On PC2 IP 192.168.20.1/24. PC3 IP 192.168.10.2/24 and PC4 IP 192.168.20.2/24. And you can see PC1 can talk with PC3 but can't talk with PC2. Ping 192.168.10.1, this is my on IP address, it's reachable. 10.2 is PC3, again PC3 is also reachable via distribution layer switch. But can I ping PC2 20.1? 20.1? No, you can see gateway is not found. If there is no gateway, you can't send traffic in different subnet, right? So here inter VLAN routing is required. That's why VLAN 10 users are able to communicate with each other in VLAN 10 only, and VLAN 20 user PC2 ping 192.168.20.1 my on IP address and 20.2 PC4 reachable, right? PC2 and PC4 are in same VLAN 20, but I can't ping 10.1. Gateway not found. So now let's create SVI on distribution layer switch, and that is going to be the gateway for LAN users. Interface VLAN 10 no shutdown and IP address 192.168.10. let's say 254. The last IP address from the subnet is my gateway, right? This is the gateway for VLAN 10. Interface VLAN 20, again no shutdown, and IP address 192.168.20.254.255.255.255.0. This is my gateway for VLAN 20 users. So IP interface brief, here you can see we have two SVI, right? And so run interface VLAN 10. Here is my configuration. You can see no such command is not required, right? These are virtual interfaces. Now go to PCs and define the gateway IP address. IP and gateway will be 192.168.10.254. On PC2 gateway is going to be 192.168.20.254. On PC3 gateway is going to be 192.168.10.254, and on PC4 gateway will be 192.168.20.254. Now we can check the reachability to gateway. Let me ping 192.168.10.254. You can see VLAN 10 users are able to ping their gateway. Similarly, VLAN 20 users should be also able to ping their gateway 192.168.20.254, and you can see it should be reachable. It is reachable, right? So now you can test the inter VLAN routing. Now from PC1 you can try to ping PC2 as well, means VLAN 20 user 20.1. You can see ping is working. Now I'm able to ping PC2 from PC1. Similarly, I can ping PC4 as well from PC1 20.2, and you can see this ping is working, right? On the switches you can verify MAC address table, like switch is learning which MAC address on which port. Here you can see the MAC address table, right? You can even filter the MAC address table with a VLAN. I can say show me the MAC address table of VLAN 10 only, right? So switch 1 is learning MAC address in VLAN 10 on G0/1 interface and G0/0 interface, because G0/1 is in VLAN 10 and 0/0 is trunk port, which is part of all the VLAN. On 0/0 it can learn MAC address in any VLAN, not in all the VLAN. In VLAN 10, 20 and 100, only these three VLANs are allowed on the trunk link. Even you can create project in packet tracer if you don't have EVNG, but these are real devices, guys. These are real routers, real switches which we are using in the production. You can perform it in packet tracer as well without having any issue. Now we are done with the LAN side configuration. Even STP protocol is not required, because here you can see my topology is not in loop, right? But later maybe you will add more switches here. That time loop is very dangerous thing. Loop is one of the most dangerous thing in network, so you should never ignore STP protocol, right? And for faster convergence, nowadays we are using RSTP. So I can configure RSTP protocol here on all the switches. Here it is not required, even you can ignore it. But if you will configure, I am not going to configure, leave it on default. By default STP is already enabled, but you need to optimize it, right? You will not leave it on default in the production. So spanning tree, you can see the spanning tree instance, and so spanning tree summary, right? You can see which protocol is running. Actually PVST protocol is running, RPVST is running, great. Rapid spanning tree protocol is running by default. On older switches by default protocol will be PVST. So maybe on all your switches protocol STP layer 2 loop avoidance protocol is PVST. My switches are the latest switches, so here RSTP protocol is enabled. Now you can configure these ports as access port, like on access layer switch I can say config t spanning tree for VLAN 10 or for VLAN 20, for all the VLAN like this spanning tree port fast and edge, right? So this command will enable port fast on all the edge port, on all edge port default, right? So it will enable port fast feature on all the port which are configured as access, port, and we have already configured these ports as access port. Switch port mode access command is running on all access ports, right? Similarly, you can use this command, you can run this command on switch number 2 also. Do so history, this was my command. Go to switch 2 config t spanning tree, spanning tree port fast edge and default. Now port fast is enabled. Quickly your LAN ports will come in forwarding state, otherwise it will take 30 seconds to come in forwarding state. Now we need to configure routing between core layer and distribution layer. Here we are done with the distribution layer configuration, and for inter VLAN routing just need to create SVI. We don't need to configure routing. Why? Because both the SVIs are created on single switch, right? We have only one distribution layer switch. So for inter VLAN routing we don't need to configure any routing protocols. Both the subnets are directly connected, so IP route. You can see sorry, on distribution layer switch. So IP route, both the subnets are directly connected, one on VLAN 10 interface, one on VLAN 20 interface. Now let me configure this link G0/0 of distribution layer as layer 3 port, right? This port is going to be layer 3 port. Config T interface G0/0 no switch port. This command will make this port layer 3, and now you can configure IP address here. IP address, what subnet I am using, 10.10.1.1. Let me use 1.255.255.255.0. Done. And now go to router R1 and configure router 1 as well. Enable config T host name R1 and interface FG0/0 no shutdown, and IP address, let me say 10.1.2.255.255.255.0. Here I have configured this IP. Let me check the connectivity between our core layer device, means R1 and distribution switch. Do ping 10.1.1.1 and ping should work. You can see ping is working. Now for routing, we will configure any routing protocol. Here I am going to configure OSPF. So router OSPF 1 router ID, let me say 1.1.1 1.1.1, or you can use the IP address as a router ID 10.1.1.2, and on distribution switch 1 I will configure 10.1, and network, let me advertise 10.1.1.0 wildcard mask 0.0.255 and area 0. I have enabled OSPF on this interface. Do so IP OSPF interface brief, and you can see OSPF is enabled on G0/0, right? Let me change the network type as well. Network type should be point to point here. So IP OSPF network point to point, but we don't have any neighborship because we didn't enable OSPF on distribution switch. So go to distribution switch, say router OSPF 1 router ID 10.1.1 and network 10.1.1.0 0.0.255 and area 0. Done. Exit. Now we will have neighborship, and we need to change the network type as well on G0/0 IP OSPF network point to point. Do so IP OSPF interface brief. You can see OSPF is enabled on G0/0, and now we have neighborship. So IP OSPF neighbor. You can see we have neighborship here. Who is the neighbor? 10.1.1.2 means router number 1. But distribution switch is not advertising LAN prefixes to router, right? On router number 1 you can't find LAN subnet, so IP route and OSPF. So through OSPF we are not receiving any prefix, so IP route 192.168.10.0. you can see this LAN subnet is not in routing table, not present in routing table. So from distribution layer switch, now I am going to advertise LAN subnet to router OSPF again 1 and network 192.168.10.0 wildcard mask 0.0.255 and area 0, network 192.168.20.0. got it? So IP OSPF interface brief. Now you can see OSPF is enabled on these two SVI interfaces as well. And now if I will take you to R1 and if I will show you the routing table, now you can see route is present for this LAN subnet. So IP route OSPF. Now through OSPF R1 is learning these two LAN subnet. Got it? Now PC1 can ping R1 as well. If I will take you to PC1 and if you will ping router IP ping 10.1.1.2, then you can see I am getting reply, right? Means router is now reachable from the. Now I am going to configure the WAN port of router R1, right? Let me take you to R1, go to config T and let me configure interface G0/1. Here I can configure one description WAN interface, right, or connected to internet. Then no shutdown, and IP address. Here my public subnet is 1.1.1.0, so IP 1.1.1.1 255.255.255.0. Exit, and I will configure one default route to forward all internal traffic to internet. IP route 0.0.0.0 exit interface G0/1 and next hop IP 1.1.2. Now let me configure internet router as well. Enable config T host name internet and interface G0/0, no shutdown. IP address 1.1.2 255.255.255.0. Very good. Now here on the internet I am going to create one loopback for testing, right? Like you can imagine, that is the public server connected on internet router, connected to internet router, interface loopback 1 and IP address, let's say 8.8.8.8 255.255.255.0. This is my server on internet, the public server, right? The DNS server you can imagine. Now, can router forward traffic to internet? First of all, let me check reachability through WAN link. Ping 1.1.1.2 IP address of internet router, and you can see it is reachable. Success rate is 80%, now 100%. Can I ping 8.8.8? Ping 8.8.8.8. Yes, you can see 8.8.8 is also reachable. Ping is working. From the WAN port, you can ping 8.8.8 from G0/0. But can I ping 8.8.8 from LAN port? No. Ping 8.8.8 and source G0/0. No, this ping will not work. Why? Because internet router don't have route. You can forward any traffic to internet, but for reverse you don't have path, right? Internet router don't have path. When you will not define the source, then source IP will be exit interface IP address. So IP route, if I am pinging to 8.8.8, destination will match in this default route, and router 1 is going to forward traffic to 1.1.1.2. exit interface is fast ethernet 0/ not fast ethernet, gigabit ethernet 0/1. So source IP will be 1.1.2 and destination IP will be 8.8.8. When ISP will generate reply, source IP will be 8.8.8 and destination will be 1.1.1.1, right? Source IP is going to be 1.1.1. The IP address which is running on exit interface, not 1.1.2, right? So IP interface brief 1.1.1.1, right? So source 1.1.1, destination 8.8.8.8. Router 1 is going to look up the routing table, and based on routing table it will forward traffic to internet. When internet will generate reply, source IP is going to be 8.8.8 and destination is going to be 1.1.1.1, and destination is public IP address, so internet router will have route, right? That's why you are able to ping 8.8.8. But when I will ping 8.8.8 from LAN interface from G0/0, then source IP will be 10.1.1.2 and destination IP will be 8.8.8. Again, router 1 is going to compare destination IP with routing table and it will forward traffic to internet. But this time internet can't send reply message, right? Because internet router don't have route for this private IP address. That's why ping is not working. Here you have to configure NAT or PAT. We have multiple types of NAT: static NAT, dynamic NAT, and PAT, port address translation. So I am going to configure PAT here. I am going to configure PAT, port address translation. Go to config T. First of all, interface G0/0. This is my inside interface, IP NAT inside, exit, and G0/1 is outside, interface G0/1, IP NAT outside, exit. Now let me create one access control list to match internal IPs, right? Or I can say access list number 10 permit any, right? In this permit any, or you can permit all the private subnet, right? I can say no to this, or and IP access list 10 IP access list standard number 10, and here you can define the permit keyword. You know the private range of IP addresses from each class: 10.1.0.0 while comma 0.0.255.255, right? One is going to be this subnet. Then permit 192.168.10.00.0.255, then permit 192.168.20.00.0.255. Like this you can allow all your private subnets. Exit. Now I need to configure NAT actually. So IP NAT inside source, I'm saying match source IP address from list number 10 from the access list which we have created. And for the destination, translate source IP address into the IP address which is running on interface G0/1, and for PAT overload. That's it. And now if I am going to ping 8.8.8 from LAN interface, ping 8.8.8 and source G0/0, then you can see now ping is working. From the LAN interface also now I am able to ping internet. And so IP NAT translation, here you can see the translation. 1.1.1 is translated into, like this private IP address 10.1.1.2 is translated into 1.1.1. Right, here is inside global, inside local, and outside global. Guys, again I am saying, if you don't know the NAT, then again you can't explain it, right? Even you have the project, you can mention it in your resume, but it will be difficult after getting job. You can get job in the company, but you can't survive. Nowadays, you know, IT industry, like almost all the companies in IT industry are firing engineers. Reason: skill mismatch, right? So first you should have clear and crystal understanding. You should have a strong foundation, expert level of technical knowledge, and then only these projects will help you to get job, right? This project, you can use this project as a hands-on experience, means this is your experience, but it will not help you if you don't know the NAT. If you have expert level knowledge of NAT, then only you can explain it, or you can show it as a experience. And if you want to learn from the scratch, then I already told you, I am starting CCNA and CCNP batch from 6th of next month, November. 6th of November. You have multiple options. You can go with CCNA to CCNP, CCNA CCNP combo, or you can go with CCNA to CCIE, or you can enroll in mentorship, right? CCNA to CCIE is going to teach you complete modern enterprise, today's enterprise, in just one flow. CCNA CCNP will cover again the enterprise, but not the advanced troubleshooting. Except advanced troubleshooting, both are exactly same. And mentorship will teach you CCNA CCNP plus SD-WAN, the most useful WAN technologies in today's time, and one next generation firewall, that is job ready program. Okay, now if you will check your PCs should be also able to ping internet. Now ping 8.8.8.8. Destination host unreachable. Why PCs are not able to ping internet? Because my default gateway don't have route. If I will take you to the distribution layer switch, and if I will show you the routing table, so IP route, you can see we don't have default route here. We don't have default route here, right? So when user is going to generate traffic for 8.8.8, PC will forward to gateway to the distribution layer switch, and distribution layer switch is going to compare destination with routing table, and if route is not available, it will drop. Now I am going to tell to my edge router R1 to advertise default route to internal devices. Go to R1, config T, save config T, router OSPF 1, and default information originate, and always command is not required. Now you can manipulate with metric type, I can say 1. That's it. Now go to distribution switch and check routing table. So IP route Still you are not receiving default route. Now you can see we are receiving one default route through OSPF, and you can see this is external matrix type 1 prefix. Now from PC1, if I am going to ping internet, you can see ping is working. All the PCs should be able to access internet. PC1 is able to access. Go to PC2, ping. You can see PC2 is also able to access internet. PC3 is also able to access internet. PC4 is also able to access internet. So this is your basic lab, basic project, right? You can say your first project. In next project, I will discuss something different, some more information, some more important scenario, and some advanced scenario. By the way, here also we can improve our configuration. We can limit the access, internet access, we can limit the cloud access, right? That can be discussed in next class. We'll decide what should be our second project. But if you like this video, if you need more videos like this, please share your feedback in the comment section. Even if you don't want to write long sentence, just type helpful. If you will type helpful, or if you are going to share your feedback in the comment section, trust me guys, it will help me a lot to make more videos like this, right? That's always motivate me to work hard to make more content in easy language. That's all for today. Hope this video was helpful for you and you will use it in your resume or in your college project. If it will help you in future to grow your career, then don't forget to suggest others to learn and master technologies from PM networking. Thank you so much for watching. We'll meet soon in next video. Till then, stay safe. Bye bye. Thank you so much.